I was involved in a physical restraint of a patient in emergency not long ago now. This fella only just recently arrived to emergency with ambulance. We took over care, and at the start he seemed to be quite calm and compliant with what we were trying to do. Wanting him to make sure he doesn't have any metals on him, breath alcohol, vital signs, all that kind of stuff. He was initially compliant. I ordered a guard. Those things take a bit of time, but I ordered a guard. And we were kind of in that gray, period where we're waiting for a guard and ambulance leaving. But we had a nurse looking after him. And maybe after 20 minutes or so, he became a bit more agitated, started asking questions, wanted to go home. He didn't understand why he was in emergency. He was very unwell, rambling constantly, delusional, very paranoid. He wanted a copy of the Mental Health Act because he was detained. So we provided that. He had an issue with that. And he got it, he escalated. He walked out of the room and walked up to the doctor. The doctor was like trying to play, very, very calm. Redirected him into the room. Fine, okay. That's kind of... it's a red flag. It's a deteriorating patient. Medically speaking, when you have somebody that drops the blood pressure or spikes the heart rate or something along those lines, it's a very obvious sign of deterioration. It's a number and you can see the trend. But with mental health, it's a little bit different. You don't get these numbers, but you do get these visual cues, which if you've been around mental health for a little while, you pick up on these cues. And if you don't act upon them, then you might have a physical fight on your hands, or you might have a situation where one of us get injured. And this has happened before many times in emergency. And so as the shift coordinator on that day, my spidey sense was tingling. I was like, man, I need to do something about this. So straight away when he got redirected by the doctor back to the room, straight away I got on the phone, called security, organized a one-on-one guard. And I said, look, man, we need to do something about this. Can you send a guard while we wait for the order, to come in, a one-on-one guard? And so security was great. They brought somebody down. And I was kind of hovering around this area for a little bit just to see how he was going to go. And we didn't medicate him. That was doctor's decision. He kind of was, at that moment, agreeable to what we were trying to do. So he had moments of clarity where he understood what was going on. And then he would have these delusions, maybe voices in his head that was telling him otherwise. And at this one moment, I was walking down the corridor. I thought he had settled. I've got a security guard kind of in the area. It's all good. And then, boom, he kind of jumps up out of bed and just starts marching towards the exit. And the exit maybe, 30 meters away, something like that. And it was just one guard. And this fellow was very, very tall. He was a slim guy, but very tall. If I was to estimate, he would easily be, 195 centimeters, something like that, maybe even 2 meters. Very, very, how, skinny people look even taller than they actually are. And the security guard is this Indian dude, very lovely guy, cool dude, get along with him really well, but he's basically, 2 heads shorter than him. He's not that tall. Capable, but not that tall. So I kind of decided to help him restrain this fella. Now, if we let this guy, let's say he gets out through the waiting room and out onto the street, it's a bad thing, right? Because he's not mentally well. Will he jump in front of traffic on the road? Will he go do some other harm to himself, harm to other people? So we have a duty of care to make sure he doesn't leave and, go into the public until he gets seen by the mental health team, until we medicate him. Maybe he stays a couple of days. I'm sure he will get discharged eventually, but right now he's at risk to himself and the community. So, the security guard grabs him, and because there's only one of him, we called for a code black. But that takes a bit of time. And so I decided to help the security guard. So I kind of grab one arm, he grabs another arm, and we're kind of trying to get him back to the room. But he's tall and he's got good leverage on us. And so we kind of, wrestling with him down the corridor, trying to keep him on his feet and, making his way back to his room. And finally we get to the room. It was a big, big old struggle, broke a sweat. And this fellow wasn't trying to hurt us. He wasn't trying to hit us like many others have in the past, where wondering if you're going to lose a tooth in the whole thing. No, this guy, I didn't feel as though he wanted to hurt anybody. He just wanted to leave. And so, myself and the security guard, we were trying to just hold an arm each and just kind of direct him back. And we kept talking. Matey, please go back to the room. We'll get the doctor. We'll get it all sorted. We just want to make sure you're all right. This is for your safety. And he was saying, let me go. that kind of stuff. We'll go back to the room and the doctor comes in and there's a whole group of people. And so we had to medicate him because he was a risk to himself at this point and other people. And so we've medicated him and everything's kind of fine at this point. I walk away and I'm like, it's a bit of adrenaline and whatnot. I walk away and my forearms were absolutely jacked. Like I pumping my forearms to the point where like they were painful. At the time I thought, have I injured myself? Like this is really, really weird. And this was kind of during that period that I was setting all the PRs. And so I'm like, oh God, great. I've injured my freaking hands. Can I squat? Of course I can squat, but like, can I really set PRs with pain in my arms? And so, I'm telling you this story to tell you that you can have all the power in your legs and your glutes and in your lower back and all this stuff. But like in a real scenario, like what I was, like I'm transferring all that force through my hands onto somebody else's body, onto a different object. There was no handle on him. It's not like a nice barbell with a nice knurling. No, I had to like literally grab his upper arm and make sure like I'm holding it. At the same time, I'm not trying to like hurt him. I'm not trying to like clench. So I'm just trying to hold him with kind of like a soft grip, if you know what I mean. So it's all in the wrists. Go home that day and I'm like, my wrists are like really, really jacked. And I remember all the talks that I've had with another security guard, which has since not worked with us for a few years now. He was into MMA, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that kind of stuff, all the disciplines of martial arts. And he used to always tell me like about wrist strength, how important it is like to grab a hold of somebody, control their body and whatnot. And we used to have amazing chats. And I remember he used to I remember one night shift, he brought in this club. It's basically like a barbell, not like a barbell, like a bat, like a baseball bat. But it's kind of like a bit fatter and it's quite heavy. And he used to use that to strengthen his wrist, like balance it and whatnot. All this weird stuff that you'd never know if you're just weightlifting and bodybuilding, all that kind of thing. And so it opened my mind that, my God, like it's the joint, like the wrist is really, really important. And then when I had that pump, I started thinking about that, the MMA stuff. I started thinking about arm wrestling. You have these big dudes with strong biceps, lots of muscle in the forearm, but the wrist is weak and they can't transfer all that strength into that object or opponent that they have. And so just joints are critical. And now, how do you make sense of that and not transfer that over to the squat? Like, what about the joints, the hip joint, like the actual joint, the actual spine, like the joints in your spine? It's not just about muscle, even though we make it seem as though it's just about, it's not. Just like it's not just about muscle with arm wrestling, just like it's not about muscle, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's technique, there's a joint integrity, strength, so much to it. And so in that moment, like I'm much heavier than the guy that I was dealing with. But number one, I'm very unskilled when it comes to like this type of stuff. I'll be the first one to say I'm not a security guard. I'm there to assess patients and administer meds and all that kind of stuff. I'm a nurse. But, in situations many times over, I've been involved where I've helped out security guards to make sure no one gets hurt or, my female colleagues don't have to like step in. I'll obviously rather do it. And each time I'm like, I've got this mass about me. I'm more than 100 kilos. I'm capable, but I like if things happen, like I can easily see me breaking my wrist or, or popping a shoulder or I don't know, like, because I'm not used to that type of discipline. I'm not used to handling a body. I'm like, I use dumbbells and barbells, but this is weird, man. Like your hands open and it's weird. It just makes you appreciate about the joints that, there's specificity to all of this stuff, just like there's squats and deadlifts and fighting and whatnot. Same thing crossed my mind. Like if I was to go punch a, heavy bag, boxing bag, really hard. Yeah, sure. I'm a heavy dude. I could probably do some damage. My God, can the wrist take it? This is the thing, man. It's a different freaking beast to think about this stuff. It's not just about mass or generation of power. Can you transfer it? Can you transfer that power, man? It's a different thing. And every time I get into this type of train of mind, I'm always thinking about arm wrestling because it's the easiest thing for me. I'm not a fighter, whatever, but like if you train all of these supination, pronation, rising, all that kind of stuff, and all the other exercises for arm wrestling, you just feel stronger. And that transfers, in my case, over to the bench press as well because my wrist feels stronger. You're leaking power through these joints. You don't even realize it. There's so much more to it, man. I think that's super interesting, man, when you think about it that way. Appreciate you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.